All right, let's talk about a conflict that most people have never even heard of, but one that completely reshaped the 20th century. It's an incredible story of how a victorious alliance just crumbled into a war of betrayal, turning the entire Balkan region into the powder keg of Europe.
I mean, just picture this. You've got this triumphant alliance that has just kicked the Ottoman Empire out of the Balkans after centuries of rule. It should have been a time for parades and celebration, right? But instead, boom. Almost overnight, they're at each other's throats. Former allies become bitter enemies. It's a shocking turn of events.
So, the big question is, how did it all fall apart so fast? Well, it all starts with the prize of victory. A prize that, as it turned out, was more like a poison pill.
I mean, this victory was absolutely stunning. The map of southeastern Europe was literally redrawn. The Ottoman Empire was basically pushed all the way out of the continent. But here's the kicker. The treaty that ended the war, it left this huge, dangerous question mark hanging in the air. It never actually said who would get which piece of all this newly conquered land.
And you guessed it, everyone's eyes immediately went to the most valuable and the most dangerous piece of real estate on the board, Macedonia. Now, this place wasn't just a chunk of land. It was the emotional heart of competing national dreams. The Greeks, the Bulgarians, the Serbs, they all believed history itself had promised Macedonia to them.
And this right here is the heart of the problem. You had Serbia, who felt totally cheated because the great powers of Europe had just created Albania, blocking Serbia from its dream of getting a port on the Adriatic Sea. So they said, fine, we want a bigger piece of Macedonia as compensation. But Bulgaria, they had done most of the heavy lifting in the war and saw Macedonia as their sacred, non-negotiable reward.
So you can see how this diplomatic mess quickly started to get ugly. The trust between these former allies just evaporated, and they started making secret deals against each other.
You can just see how fast things started to spiral out of control. Greece and Serbia were both looking at Bulgaria's ambitions and getting really nervous. They quickly realized, hey, maybe we should team up, which led them to create a secret pact that was going to change the whole game.
So, think about this. In just a matter of weeks, Bulgaria goes from being the top dog of the Balkan League to being completely on its own. The Serbo-Greek Pact basically surrounded them, and to make matters worse, they snubbed Russia's attempts to play peacemaker. So Russia just washed its hands of them, canceling their old alliance.
Now, being suddenly isolated like that, combined with a whole lot of overconfidence, led Bulgaria's leaders to make an absolutely disastrous and reckless move that was about to set the entire region on fire.
You know, hubris is a heck of a thing. Tsar Ferdinand was dreaming big, dreaming of a greater Bulgaria, and his generals, well, they were still riding high from their incredible victories against the Ottomans. They genuinely believed their army was invincible, that just one good hard punch would be enough to make Serbia and Greece just fold.
And you can see where their confidence came from. Just look at the raw numbers. On paper, they looked absolutely terrifying. They had almost 5 times more artillery than Serbia and 6 times more than Greece. They looked at this and thought, a quick victory isn't just possible, it's a sure thing.
With all that firepower, what could possibly go wrong? Well, tragically, it seems the Bulgarian High Command didn't really stop to ask themselves that question. They were so focused on their military advantages that they completely missed the political reality of their situation.
And this was the fatal gamble. The attack was launched in total secrecy, which just created absolute chaos. When the civilian government in Sofia found out what the army had done, they freaked out and immediately sent out new orders to stop the attack. So you've got conflicting commands flying around, and the whole offensive just gets crippled before it even really begins. It was a mess.
So yeah, that gamble backfired. Big time. Instead of shocking their enemies into giving up, it did the exact opposite. It provoked a massive, unified response that would absolutely crush the Bulgarian army.
And the collapse, wow, it was shockingly fast. All of a sudden, Bulgaria finds itself completely surrounded, getting attacked by 4 different armies at the same time. The Serbs and Greeks, who were already battle-hardened, didn't just defend, they hit back hard. And then, seeing that Bulgaria was on the ropes, Romania and even the Ottoman Empire jumped in, hoping to grab some territory for themselves.
There was this one moment of really fierce resistance, a last-ditch effort that showed a glimpse of the army's former power, but it was just too little, too late. Strategically, the situation was completely hopeless. Bulgaria was being carved up from every single direction.
Surrounded, exhausted, and totally demoralized, Bulgaria really had no choice but to ask for an armistice. But the peace treaty that followed, well, it didn't bring any real peace. All it did was sow the seeds for even more conflict.
You know, the Treaty of Bucharest, signed on August 10, 1913, you can't really call it a peace agreement. It was, for all intents and purposes, a punishment. The very nation that had been the strongest power coming out of the First Balkan War was now being systematically stripped of almost everything it had fought so hard to win.
So, at the end of the day, Serbia comes out of this as the big winner, the new powerhouse in the Balkans. It had nearly doubled in size. And this sudden, massive growth on its southern border absolutely terrified its big neighbor to the north, Austria-Hungary.
And the fallout from this short, incredibly brutal war? It was massive. The peace treaty didn't solve a single problem. It just created new, more dangerous ones. Now you had a powerful and confident Serbia, a bitter and vengeful Bulgaria, and an entire region just simmering with resentment.
And that's the question that was just hanging over all of Europe. The Second Balkan War had completely shuffled the deck, creating the exact alliances and rivalries that would explode into the First World War just 1 year later. The fuse that was lit in the Balkans was now burning its way, step by step, straight to Sarajevo.